Ladies and gentlemen, this is Gail Morgan welcoming you to the Libertarian Counterpoint's Knuckleheads of Liberty podcast. You've heard their point, now listen to the counterpoint.
Welcome to the Knuckleheads of Liberty podcast. We're coming at you on September 15th of 2021. So we have stumbled our way through about 8 months of the Biden administration, just putting on a clinic of how not to run a country. So that's kind of where we are. Before we get into any of that, I want to introduce you to our panel. I also want to say our Screaming Eagle of Freedom, Tim Everett, isn't here today. Get well, Tim. We hope to have you back soon. That said, let me introduce you to our current panel. In our upper left-hand corner, we have our invisible hand, James Just, normally helping us out behind the camera, helping us out now in front of the camera. And then in our upper right-hand corner, we have Leon the Word Brathwaite, last word in Liberty. He is a retired engineer from the state of California. And my name is Jason McPhee, and I will be your host today. So let's jump right into the issues. So Biden kind of letting the mask slip on his tyrannical nature regarding vaccines. He recently said in a couple of speeches and then throughout a mandate in his speech, he said, we've been patient, but our patience is wearing thin with regards to people who've chosen not to vaccinate. And then he had said as well that we need to protect the vaccinated from the unvaccinated. Excuse me, that's the whole point of a vaccine.
That's right.
To protect you. So if you are getting the vaccine, you're about as protected as you're going to be. Anyways, and so now he's put out this mandate, and he's trying to force companies through OSHA to essentially, if you're of a certain size company, I think at least 100 employees,
yes,
you're going to be forced to test or show that your people are vaccinated weekly. This is something where if there's any violations of that, per employee, this could be as much as I think 5 figures per employee. Yeah. So this could literally ramp up to hundreds of thousands of dollars a year, or maybe millions of dollars, depending upon how a company is functioning with this stuff. So anyways, it just seems like it's such a horrendous violation. I don't think there's any kind of authority to do this within the law, a statute that allows OSHA, which is what he's using to go in and say you've got to force your employees to show that they're vaccinated if you want to work, and that's kind of what they're doing. You guys have any thoughts on this?
I am almost certain. I am not a lawyer. I only play one on TV. Well, I am almost certain this is unconstitutional. Okay, and it should be. Because where does the federal government get the authority to tell anyone that what they should or should not put in their bodies? Where do they get this authority? This is unbelievable. And you know what is going on right now? They have decided they're going to demonize the unvaccinated. They're going to demonize them and make them the boogeyman. Oh my goodness gracious, we should be scared of these people. Can't you see that? They're going to point up then. What is it?
Looks like you might be freezing up a little bit, Leon.
I'm sorry.
I think you might be freezing up, at least on my end.
Yeah, you're a little sketchy there.
Okay.
Yeah, you're good.
Okay.
We just missed part of what you're saying, Leon. Sorry.
We missed the word.
What part did you miss? What part did you miss then? From where?
Just some words. Sorry. But you were talking about authority, I think. Where does he get the authority?
Yes.
And it's not in the Constitution, as far as you're telling us.
That's right. Where do they get the authority to tell us, any of us, what we could put into our bodies? The Constitution gives them no such authority. So I am sure the court is going to strike this down. I am positive about it. But I was going further on the point that what they are trying to do now is to demonize the unvaccinated. There's a whole body of people right out there right now who were never vaccinated, but who had the COVID and recovered. And there was an Israeli study that have shown that these people have 13 times the immunity or their natural immunity provides like 13 times the protection versus the vaccine. So my son, who did have COVID and who have recovered, is far more. He didn't. Well, he of course he didn't have the vaccine, but he's far more protected than I am or my wife is. But yet they're going to demonize people like my son, who did not take the vaccine, and these people have no authority to mandate that anybody should put this vaccine into their bodies. Now I did it because of my choice. So did my wife. But where do these people have this authority to tell us to do this? This is unbelievable.
Well, Leon, I think we have to point out the last 18 months have proven they don't care about our freedoms. They don't care about the Constitution. And I'm not entirely sure I trust the courts to solve it. I mean, the Fourth Amendment clearly says we have a right to be secure in our persons. It's clear and clear. But they're using some clause in the first that they have the duty to protect the health, the welfare of the community. Yeah. Somehow oversees my clearly expressed right to be secure in my person. Yeah. And so they're saying that one right is more important than the other, when at best they're equal.
Right.
They're not. One right doesn't get to say, well, I'm more superior than you. No, we're co-equal rights, and which means you have to find another way to solve the problem. But they don't care. You don't care about freedom. They've told us many, many times. I'm going to believe them when they say it's not about your freedom. We don't care about your freedom. I believe them. They don't care about our freedom.
Oh yeah.
And I think we should listen to them. And and we should understand what we're actually dealing with. These are people who do not care about personal individual freedom. And when we start talking about statistics over this study says this and this study says that, we're actually not discussing the main point, is that you don't have a right to tell somebody else what to do with their body, period, end of discussion.
Sure.
This is a basic human rights issue. And then what happens? What's the end goal? Because at some point, I made this on my TV show just this week, at some point, the vaccinated are going to be tired of having to show their vaccine passport. And so then what happens? So then you're going to have to put a mark on the people who are unvaccinated to show who you're allowed to discriminate against.
Well, and where does the discrimination, I guess, end and stop? I mean, because essentially they're telling us we have to have boosters now. So, I mean, if you get a passport that says you're okay, but then eventually you're sort of not okay, where does that gray area come in?
Yeah, exactly.
It's kind of crazy. And the bottom line, though, is, why is the government telling me, just like with respect to immigration and all kinds of other stuff, if I want to associate with somebody, why the heck is the government telling me whether or not I can associate with that person?
Yes.
I mean, this is just crazy on steroids. But if you have no principles, then it's very easy to go there.
We're seeing that when they tell us. I can't express this clearly enough. They are telling us they don't care about our freedoms. Listen to them.
One thing I think is kind of interesting, the three of us did a show on Libertarian Counterpoint before, just at the very beginning, when there was starting to be a hint of this pandemic. And back then, the discussion for us was whether or not you should even be able to quarantine the sick. That literally was the debate. I mean, that shows you how far we've slipped. I mean, we were essentially saying, look, if somebody's got a contagious disease, it could be really bad. Should you at least be able to quarantine the sick person? And we just blew right past that. When this whole pandemic hit, and we literally said, we're just going to quarantine everybody. I can't even imagine, but when you have no principles, it's pretty easy to wind up in these very dystopian places. And make no mistake about it, we are living in a dystopian place right now, where literally we have gone from having freedoms. In some of these places in the world, Australia, they're literally putting some people in camps, all for their safety. It makes you wonder what some of the rhetoric they might have told the Jews when they were literally first rounding them up and putting them in camps. Was there a safety problem there? I don't know.
Jason, I gotta remind you, they're blocking off 5 mile. You can't leave a 5 mile area from your house. I saw pictures on Father's Day where they had barriers. So fathers, and where you had to go up to your barrier. That's awfully damn reminiscent of Nazi Germany, where you can't leave your zone. So if you want to go visit your family member who's outside of your zone, you got to go to the wall and you got to talk to them across the wall. it's far, for those of us who understand and know history. This is some scary stuff.
I know. 1984 is here, right? It is here. We are living through it. 1984. George Orwell.
And just to be clear too, I mean, I don't want to speak for everybody, but Leon was already mentioned on the show that he's vaccinated, and I'm vaccinated, and I feel like that literally is the safety that I need. I'm not feeling like I need to go control people in their homes in order to keep them so that I feel safe. And it feels almost reminiscent of our foreign policy. We need to be over there to make sure we feel safe here. And it almost feels like what we're doing here at home. But when you have no principles about liberty, this is where it can go.
Well, I want to remind people, vaccines, as a cautionary tale, without being overly cautious, I'm vaccinated, and I'm still dealing with some long-term side effects of that vaccination.
Yeah.
And some of them can end up being quite serious. But I don't want to scare anybody off. Make your own individual choice.
Exactly.
Fair enough. And when, in my case, I have a problem with my left shoulder. I don't know if the vaccine caused it. I don't know if the vaccine caused a problem to get worse or whatever. Okay, but it was my choice to take the vaccine. That's clear. It was my choice, and I'm fine with the decision I made. But is the vaccine perfect, 100% safe? I can't say that.
No, and just like COVID, if you have underlying health conditions, talk to your freaking doctor before you get vaccinated.
You're right, fair enough.
Because I made a mistake and didn't. And maybe the doctor would have said, maybe a doctor would have told me, you probably shouldn't do it.
You're right, exactly.
Or maybe we should wait until we have more data on people who are in your condition. But I was relatively healthy, even considering my underlying condition. So I took the chance, and we'll see. Who knows? Maybe I would have gotten COVID and had worse conditions if I would have gotten COVID. Or maybe I would have gotten the sniffles. There's no way of knowing.
Well, and just to be clear, though, here for anybody who's listening, the principle at stake here is: should the government be able to co-opt your body for somebody else's feelings of security? And that's really what we're talking about here.
Yep.
And so it always helps to identify those things so that you can really think rationally about it. Hopefully we'll leave you with that so that you can really think about this and kick this around your own head, because here some places in the country they literally, just like you said, they're going to take your freedom, and hey, it's for safety, and they don't care. So
but the point is, the point is that we have a bunch of fellow Americans, fellow citizens, some of our neighbors, some of our family members who are unvaccinated, and the government is now demonizing these people. Okay, I have a son who is not vaccinated, and he's going to be demonized. People like him are going to be demonized because they are not vaccinated, and he has more immunity in his body than me and his mother, both of whom have had the vaccine. But this is a problem. They are creating these problems between people, between fellow citizens, between our neighbors, between our community members, because they want to demonize the unvaccinated. And this is a disgusting thing that our government is trying to do right now.
Well, that's a perfect segue into our sort of our next topic, and it's some of the thinking behind what leads people to believe they can do this stuff. And Jonathan Turley published an article, I think this was about 3 or 4 months ago at least, but he was essentially talking about a couple of bioethicists, professors, Arthur Kaplan and Sarah Hull had published a paper, and they literally just discounted people's liberty in this. It's essentially you really don't have any rights because this is all about safety. And I want to read you one quote from this, because I mean, essentially what it comes down to is, they believe you have a right to health care or to force somebody to make you a certain type of cake, but they really don't believe you have a right to decide whether or not you want to dine somewhere or anything else. So it's just completely upside down. But let me read you a quote from the article, and it says, it is hard to argue in good faith that American citizens have an inalienable right to dine at a restaurant, attend shows in a theater, and travel for leisure. Indeed, if these were truly protected as rights, our government would be obligated to ensure basic access to them through entitlement programs or legal protection. So basically, if the government's not doing it for you, then it really isn't a right, in their opinion.
Well, they don't understand rights, but I'm sorry, Leon, but I want to point out that we have a right to pursue happiness. And going to a restaurant, going and engaging in entertainment activities, having a party with your friends are all part of pursuing happiness. And the government can't give you happiness. They can't give. You can only do that for yourself. So,
freedom of assembly is a stated right in our Constitution. Okay, and we didn't give that up. I mean, there are some rights we have given up so that we can have a country. But freedom of assembly is not given up. This is something that is stated. We have the right to assemble. How could you tell me then you're going to stop people from going into public places because they're unvaccinated? This is sickness on steroids. This is madness on steroids. They want to tell people what to do with their bodies. That is your whole issue. This is about power and control, nothing else. That they think that the Constitution, which is supposed to guide all decisions in terms of policies by government, the Constitution doesn't mean anything. This contract, which is the contract between the governed and the government, somehow or the other they think they could just change it and violate it as they damn well please, and we should say nothing about it. And we have these people in academia who think they're so smarter than these elites in academia. They think they're smarter than us, and we don't have a right to object to their damn nonsense. This is dystopia. This is 1984. Power and control is a guiding principle now. And the Biden administration, led by a man who is this half-senile racist, and they think they could run our lives as they damn well please. Well, we better say no to this, and we better stop them now. Otherwise, we don't know what we're going to be looking like in a year or 2 or 10 or 15 years. We don't know what this country is going to be like. I don't want to see it.
No, we've changed so much in 18 months. This is what's going to happen in another 18 months.
Indeed. Good point. Good point.
Yeah, who knows? Based upon where we were about 18 months ago when we were talking about quarantines, holy crap. I mean, we may be way behind the marker on this one, too. So,
there you go.
Yeah.
It's ironic that you brought this up, Dan. It was the three of us. Actually, that was an in-studio show, if you remember, Jason.
It was the last in-studio show we did, if memory serves.
Before we were quarantined.
Yes. It was my first Counterpoint show, and it was the last in-studio show. Maybe there's something about me that brought the whole thing about. Who knows? I don't know. But you're right. Look at what we were talking about versus where we ended up. James and I got in a little argument. I remember that show about quarantine people. Okay? And look at where we now. All of us, the whole country was quarantined. You have to stay home. You can't go out. You have to wear a mask. You can't go touch someone. You can't shake somebody's hand. All of these things happened in these 18 months, and we were just talking about quarantining the sick. Okay? All right?
Yeah. And you got to show your papers. You got to walk around with your papers in your pocket.
There you go. Unbelievable.
Well, it just goes to highlight the importance of principles. We were really trying to get at a certain principle, whether or not you could, keep somebody from essentially putting a risk on you who was had a risk, and then suddenly they took everything from us. So there you go. But it's funny though when we do talk about this, right to dine and all this other kind of stuff. I mean, at least the libertarian principle is, somebody should not impede your right, but that doesn't mean you can also force somebody. So if there's somebody who literally thinks you might have COVID and they don't want to dine with you, that's up to them too. So I mean, we're not for forcing anybody on either side of this. We just don't want the government forcing us to say, hey, you do what we tell you, or you don't get any privileges. I mean, that's just crazy. Yeah.
Well, the thing is, they've now changed rights to privileges. Yeah. The right to go to a restaurant has never, ever in the course of American history, at least, been in dispute. And now all of a sudden, it's a privilege to go to a restaurant. It's a privilege to go walk around the street. It's insane. It's literally insane. We have flipped the script like that.
Sure. I agree. Totally.
Well, and it's funny too, because on this show, as libertarians, we don't like to necessarily say we're sort of on one side or the other. But where we're going right now is really being steered by Team Blue at the moment. And fortunately, at least, there's some pushback from some of the red governors essentially on this. And they are essentially saying they're going to sue the Biden administration to keep some of these mandates about employment and other things from happening. So, like I said, you got to be a little bit careful here if you're a libertarian, because you don't want to necessarily just handcuff yourself to the right either, on some of this, because they can be wrong on things too. But at least in this case, we need to know where the big threat is. And the people who want to take away our rights in the name of safety at the moment are, for the most part, it's coming from the blue side. So, but what do you guys think about some of these red state governors saying that they're going to sue and push back?
Well, I think that that's a great, wonderful thing, and I think you're right, Jason, in terms of us getting too handcuffed to the team red, shall we say, because sometimes they do some crazy things. I mean, we were supposed to talk about George Bush. I don't know if we get there, who is a Republican, right? Right. So we don't want to handcuff ourselves too much. But I am seeing some good things out there. I mean, the people who to me stand out is Kristi Noem in South Dakota and Ron DeSantis in Florida, who are really pushing back against a lot of these things, a lot of these mandates. Greg Abbott in Texas also pushing back against these things. I think there's a team of these governors, these red state governors, who is about to sue the Biden administration over this mandate, this ridiculous mandate, which they have no authority to put out. And I think they're gonna win. I have full confidence. I mean, James, and I know James had a caution about whether the courts is gonna take care of this or not. I don't know, James. I just still have a little bit of faith that the court is somehow gonna resolve this matter, and it's gonna rule in our favor that they have no authority to do this. Seriously.
Yeah, I hear you, Leon. Ration and common sense has kind of left the building, so I just don't have much faith anymore. I just don't know. You can hope that maybe the team red, team blue thing helps in the Supreme Court. But that's an awfully iffy. It's not even iffy. It's just gross to think of it that way. That you hope there's enough team red in the Supreme Court to kind of counteract the team blue.
Yes.
But I don't trust that Team Red wouldn't do the same thing if the situations were reversed. So, I don't think, Team Red has shown, as we discussed, their own authoritarian streak. So, as Jason says, don't get too handcuffed to one side, because they'll be just as authoritarian. They'll just be authoritarian differently. And so
they'll be seeking different outcomes. We're right, through the force of law.
And just to highlight what you're saying, one of the things we wanted to talk about was the competing mandates as well. So in pushing back against some of these crazy mandates from Team Blue on our liberties, we're getting some mandates from Team Red governors as well, where they're literally saying that you can't, keep somebody out of your shop because they have COVID, or, you can't, maybe you're forced in the name of, say, resisting the 1619 project. We're going to mandate that you teach the 1776 project. So either way, I mean, you got to be a little bit careful here, right? I mean, I certainly feel for them on the pushback to some of these things, but you got to be careful that you push back in a principled way and not just reach for that ring of power to cram it down their throats either. So that's.
I mean, and that's a valid point. That's a valid point that you don't want. You do not want to mandate. You don't want the mandate to cure. You don't want a cure of the mandate with another mandate.
You don't want to become what you hate, right? It's a very simple thing. You don't want to become what you hate, and it's not. It's easy. It's an easy trap to fall into.
Sure,
it's a very easy trap to fall into. So you actually actively have to work at keeping yourself out of it. But that's life. Sorry,
Well, in the end, it all comes down to principles. And if we don't have principles, we will become the enemy. We were talking about Nazi Germany a little bit earlier in the show. I think it was this show. And, it's funny. A lot of people mistake, I guess, the lesson of that and, think it's just, identify a guy who looks like a Nazi and go punch him. So that somehow solves the problem, right? But I mean, the real lesson of that is to make sure that we don't become the monsters that we're seeing in that lesson, right? So, I mean, it's to find and adhere to ourselves to principles so we don't find that we have become monsters ourselves. And if we're fighting these tyranny with just another brand of tyranny. There you go. But anyway, let me get to our Knucklehead Noise Patrol again. We don't have the sound effect this time, so vroom, vroom, vroom. There you go.
No. Don't let that be the replacement. Don't let that be the replacement.
Yeah, we got to get that guy from Police Academy to come in. Guy with all the voices. But anyways, the crazy thing on this one is literally, the Taliban, they took over Afghanistan just in a crazy bleep show, about a month or so ago, with Joe Biden's, I guess his planned way of doing all this, by the book. I guess they thought this was a rip-roaring success. But anyways, when the Taliban came in, there was a really funny thing. They were being interviewed by a press thing, and the Taliban was literally calling out big tech censorship. Of all people, the Taliban. And so they made the point. They said, regarding Facebook, the Taliban spokesperson said to the press, the question should be asked to those people who are claiming to be promoters of freedom of speech. I can ask Facebook company. This question should be asked to them. Now, essentially what they're trying to say is, hey, look, you guys are literally, we're now the government of this country, and you're literally blocking us on the social media site from reaching our people. And that's essentially what they were saying. And they're bringing up an interesting point, but certainly we've been struggling with big tech censorship for the last year or so. And this out of the mouths of the biggest censors in the world, the Taliban. I mean, if you don't agree with them, you may not live to see the next day. So
that's right.
The authorities. So anyways, you guys have any quick thoughts on that?
Well, there's madness. There's madness on both sides of this issue. Okay, right? As you point out, the Taliban. If you disagree with them, you more than likely you're not gonna see another sunset. You're probably not. Okay, that. But on the other side of the issue is that these people complaining about the censorship of big tech, which is kind of crazy when you think about this, the biggest censors in the world complaining about censors from big tech. So leaving that aside, this censorship is bad, regardless whether it's the Taliban doing it or big tech doing it. The only difference is that big tech is private companies, so we like to say, they're private companies. They could do whatever the hell they want with their platform. I have an issue there. We could talk about that one at some point in time. But on the other side now, we have the Taliban, the biggest bunch of hypocrites you could think about, who just kill people for disagreeing with them. Okay, and they're complaining because they are being censored. This is crap beyond crap. Okay, they should just shut up. Okay. I don't think they should have a government, but that's not my call. But they just shut up, and we should do something about the censorship from big tech. Not the Taliban shouldn't be helping us. I don't want help from them. Please. Well,
Leon, I think that just about censored James from having.
No. I don't have to edit this show for time, so we're good. I'm good on this time. I can actually say something on this one. No, you've got the most brutal censor. You guys said the biggest censorship. No, the Taliban isn't the biggest censors in the world. They're the most brutal censors in the world.
Yes.
Then you've got the tech companies are the biggest censors in the world. And they both have a point. And that's the problem. That's the freaking problem. We both have a freaking point.
Okay.
Neither one of them have any moral grounds to stand on.
Valid point.
Both of them need to shut up, right, as Leon says, and change their ways. Or
you've got a problem when you're taking lessons on free speech from the Taliban. So, if you're listening.
But you can't even say anything. Well, yeah. You guys too. But you guys, see, all they literally have is, but you guys are worse. Jeez.
Well, I think we've about reached the end of our show today. But thank you so much for joining us, and we hope you'll join us at the next one. Until then, stay free.
Indeed. Bye.